acceptance. I mentioned the case where users didn't trust this. Technology is not everyone's cup of tea. For those of us for who it is, we trust it, we know it. But not everybody quite understands technology. And you see it in the national elections. Even voter identification, leave alone casting of votes, is an issue. Using the BVR, people fear that. Some say, in Anyonya Damu, the green light, it can be hacked. And you've seen in the 2017 election and the 2022 election, the petition at the Supreme Court was about the system, that the system was hacked. That's been the argument over those two petitions. But for those of you who will hang around technology enough, you see those things and you both laugh and cry at the same time. Let me begin with a laugh. When you see some of what they call evidence, ladies and gentlemen, in that very Supreme Court, it is utter, let me not use the word, it is just a joke. If you've done databases and you see that thing they call evidence, it is just a joke. But imagine it costs us a lot of money because people don't understand technology, they don't trust it. I cry because also we have an opportunity to make our elections efficient. We have an opportunity to make them even more transparent by going the technology way. But we fear the technology for good reasons, because actually hacking can happen. But hacking has not yet happened in our elections. You can take that to the bank. I look at what they say, I tell you hacking has not happened, especially not in 2022. The election was still manual. Only images were transmitted. You can't hack an image. The kind of system I am presenting today has potential to be hacked if you don't take the right measures. There is great potential for it to be hacked. But does that mean that we cannot use it? Absolutely not. We must. Because while there are loopholes, there are ways of sealing those loopholes. So these are the issues we have with technology. That yes, it's a very good thing, but yet it has the capacity to be compromised. But trust me, we still drive cars, and they have the capacity to kill us. But we just take the appropriate measures. So let's think. But we do have benefits. We do have some good things coming out of this. It's not all doom and gloom. Increased voter turnout. So if you are running an election, and at this point I want to single out organizations that do elections. For example, SACCOs, professional bodies, you know, the kind that we have said here are the target. Political parties, churches, unions, associations, societies. It's very difficult for them, even in our student association elections, to get every single member, first of all, to show up for an AGM in the first place, where they're going to vote. You get a very low turnout. But yet some of these people who don't come for that AGM would still like to have a say in the leadership. You know? Back to the case of Kabarak. We had challenges getting a good voter turnout, because sometimes some students had to go for early classes, they would come back late and voting has ended, and some are just lethargic about queuing. But when we introduced electronic and online voting, we had an improvement of about 10 to 15% turnout. And the rest is the voters who don't feel like voting anyway. But we had that because the students could vote from anywhere they are. And that goes for any election. You will most definitely increase turnout when you give your voters the option to vote online. Because they don't have to leave their jobs, their offices, their hustle, they don't have to. They can actually participate in that election from wherever they are. Costs. You don't have to print ballots, you don't have to transport ballots, and ultimately you don't have to keep paper for 5 years somewhere in a store. You know? So you don't have wasted ballots in an electronic election. You don't have to hire as many people to run that election. So for the Kabarak case, we reduced the cost of the election by going electronic. You know, at some point we were headed 500,000, 600,000. Now it does average around 250 to 300,000 for that election. Quite cheap. And the bulk of that, say 200,000, is the people, not the system. Because for the system, we just need to pay for the messages and the email and etc. So you reduce costs by going electronic. Efficiency. We are now able to start an election at any point in the day. If you want your election to start at midnight, 12:01, you can set it and it will start. You want it to end at 4:59, at 3, at 1 p.m., at 7 in the evening. Anytime you can, without inconveniencing anyone. You have flexibility. The announcement of the results, the moment the election closes, you go to the results tab and the results are there within seconds, if you are that fast. You know? So no tallying, no counting. It's done for you by the system. So when you think about it, it has its advantages. But how then do we ensure in EVIS that the system cannot be compromised? One, where do we host it? A very secure server with an SSL certificate. You vote once, you can't log in. And then the votes are encrypted sequentially. So if anybody has an issue, we are able to go to the sequence, of those values we've encrypted, and we can tell nobody has introduced a vote here. So if you know the concept of blockchain and encryption, which is sort of like jumbling up numbers mathematically, we take the first vote and mathematically combine it with the second vote. And what we have as a result, we use it as a seed for the next. So you can tell if you introduce something somewhere in between, the mathematical computation will not add up at the end. So we have that assurance on our system. So the day somebody says, Fungua server, we open the server and tell them, compute that hash yourself. If you find a difference, then know somebody interfered. You know? And there are many other considerations in that system, like can you identify who voted for what? No, you can't. We don't store the identity of the voter with the vote, the secrecy of the vote, and many other considerations that we put into EVIS. Why am I expounding on this? Because these are the concerns of every single election, be it manual or electronic. So, one other thing about your innovation journey. You've got to understand the problem domain. So we cannot effectively develop an electronic voting system without understanding the science of elections and the concerns around elections and the stakeholders in elections. There are voters, there are candidates, there'll be parties, there'll be all these kind of people. So we cannot effectively innovate in a domain that we do not understand. I hope you're picking a nugget or two as we go along, isn't it? You cannot innovate in health if you don't understand the business of health. In education, if you don't understand the business of education. Or in the food industry, or in garments, or in agriculture. You've got to understand that problem domain. Now that does not mean you need a degree. It just means you take time to understand. So those are the story around EVIS. So let me talk about electronic voting a little bit there. It's the use of electronic means. That will be computers, mobile, laptops, servers, web applications, etc., to either aid or take care of casting and counting of ballots. So whenever you introduce any electronic machine into that process, then you have an element of electronic voting. The Kenyan election is partially electronic because we are using a voter identification. It's done electronically, at least in part. So that is electronic. We are somewhere on the journey as a country. We dream that one day we should be able to embrace this. Other countries have. Maybe we can. And I'm happy today because in this room are very many young minds. You are influencers. When you go back home, the people in your villages, we keep saying this, come to you and ask you for opinions. Do you think that thing was hacked? You tell them yes, then they'll go saying, so and so is in the university. And he also says that thing was hacked. If somebody in the university could see, then that must be true. You see how much influence you have? Have you ever had that kind of an argument? Hata watu wa PhD wamesema hiyo kitu imeibiwa. They don't know whether that PhD is in anthropology or in home science or whatever. As long as you are in a position of authority, your word will be taken seriously. And you have the opportunity to learn and use electronic voting in the university. If you believe in it, if you see that it works, you are the influencer. And we are hoping that this goes beyond universities to technical and vocational training colleges. Slowly by slowly, the country should begin to appreciate that technology can work for us in a democratic process. And if it does get to that point that we believe it, we stand to gain. So, the security attributes of electronic voting that we need to think about. So this is where we learn a few things. Accuracy. In elections, we want to be sure that once a vote has been cast, it cannot be altered. Yeah? It cannot be eliminated. And an invalid vote cannot be included in the final tally. Minor KI 2013 or something. You remember 2016? Something like that, isn't it? You had a lot of minor KI the other day, isn't it? Where the question of should invalid votes be included as part of the total votes cast. Of course, that the Supreme Court has pronounced itself twice on the matter. It is invalid, it is invalid. In electronic voting, you don't have invalid votes. You cannot cross beyond the box. Can't happen. You know? So one of the advantages in electronic voting, you don't have spoiled votes. So your people, those who want to vote for you, cannot confuse, cannot spoil your vote. Absolutely not. It cannot be eliminated from the final tally. Absolutely not. It is counted as cast. In terms of reliability, this is where we may face challenges. So if you host your system, one, in a place that has challenges with the internet, then it's likely to be on and off, isn't it? And that is bad. That can't happen. And that's one of the reasons we moved our system from hosting it within the university, because we didn't have enough capacity to keep it live 24/7. We have power blackouts every so often. Now, you can't have a power blackout during an election. No way. Like, absolutely no way. Because if it does, and somebody's vote is halfway being cast, it gets lost somewhere in between. A transaction is not complete. It registers they have voted, but yet the vote has not arrived. So, one of the things we did is to take it to a place that gives us 99.99% availability. That's DigitalOcean. It should be robust. Should not have errors, should not have bugs. The moment somebody sees an error, they're like, oh no, this system is not good. It will not serve the purpose. It has to promote democracy. In other words, only eligible voters should be able to vote. So, how do you ensure that? People must log in. You must use strong passwords. And on EVIS, we have two-factor authentication. So we have your email or your phone number, and you request, and you've been registered. So you request for a password, a one-time password. We give you the password at that point. At some point, if we need you to validate your votes, we can send you another validation code, and so on and so forth. So, eligibility and authentication. Another issue around eligibility is you have some positions where certain people should vote and others not, isn't it? Like ladies here, or if in the national scene, you are in, say, this is Menengai ward, you should only vote for the Menengai ward representative, not Menengai and Mosop and Nakuru West, isn't it? You in Nakuru, you only vote for the governor Nakuru, you don't vote for the governor, Nyandarua, etc. So people must vote where they're supposed to be. EVIS gives us that opportunity. And I'll show you how you partition your voters based on their characteristics. And you say the male are voting there, the ladies there, town campus here, or maybe certain kinds of church members vote for that position, certain members of a circle, maybe by age or deposits, vote for this position. You can structure your voting around that. And uniqueness, you should not be able to vote more than once. At least, this is not an opinion poll. It's elections, yeah? One man, one vote. So on EVIS, once you vote once, you can't even log in again. Integrity. The votes should not be modified, forged, deleted without detection. If anybody tries, at least it should be detected. Audit, an audit trail. So, another issue around integrity is that the initial parameters and other configurations must remain static during the active voting. So you cannot add voters or remove voters in an ongoing election once it has started. You cannot change constituencies once the election has started. There are certain things that must hold constant when an election is going on. On EVIS, we have the ability to edit a voter's contact information, even when the election is going on. So say their email address is incorrect, so they are not getting a password, or their phone number is incorrect, they are not getting the password. That we can change. But that email is unique in the entire system. And once they have voted, and once that email has been used, and once that phone number has been used, it cannot be used by anyone else. So there are certain elements that must hold static, others can change. Data integrity. And this is where our blockchain solution came in. Votes must be recorded correctly and must not be changed once they have been cast. They must permanently remain that way. And that is one of the provisions we have made on EVIS. Operator authentication. Only authorized persons must access that system. Authorized means either you are the election manager, you are a clerk, for example, you are a voter. Those are authorized persons. But they have different levels of authority. So you only see what you must access. And you only perform certain functions when they are allowed. For example, the election manager cannot access, nobody can access results when the election is ongoing on EVIS. You know, it's tantamount to opening the ballot box and counting as people cast. That's not possible. It's a no-no for us. You know, so as an election goes on, nobody can see the tally. Not even the election manager. You know, so certain functions must be restricted. And you must use what you call non-trivial authentication mechanisms, strong passwords, one-time passwords on SMS or email. Accountability. These operations must be monitored through an audit trail as you preserve confidentiality. That is important. Privacy. The vote must be secret. So you have a unique challenge here to make sure that nobody is introducing votes, yeah, but yet nobody can connect the vote with the voter as they do the audit. Now that is important because in an election, you don't want voters to be identified by their choices. Because that can lead to coercion. That can lead to intimidation. No? So even if somebody wants to audit the system, they should be able to audit it, but still not connect who voted for what. It is a challenge because if people are voting from wherever they're voting, say their hostels, their offices, there's a chance that somebody can come and say, open your portal and let me see what you're casting in favor of. Now that's something we can't quite control out there. But still, we need to educate voters on this one. That you don't go proving, look, I voted for you, now give me the 500. That's a difficult one. But the system should be able to provide that kind of assurance. Verifiability. We should be able to verify that all votes have been correctly accounted for in the final tally. Now, this is an interesting math we do on EVs. So when you log in, there are some positions you don't want to vote for. So instead of, there's a way to spoil your ballot. We call it abstain. You cannot be forced to vote for a position that you don't want to. But yet, we must explain. And you saw this question in the Supreme Court, isn't it? Why are all these numbers adding up? And that's where I think they gave a directive that in future, Form 34A should add up, isn't it? If you removed 50 leaflets from the booklet, from the presidential booklet, you must account for 50 leaflets, whether they were valid votes, invalid votes, or stray votes. They must all be accounted for. You got that controversy, isn't it? Everything must add up. So even on the system, it must all add up. So the only way there are two ways. You can force people to vote, or you can give them an option to abstain, which is what we've done on EVs. Auditability. There should be authentic election records, and they should be provable. Our blockchain, remember. So go read the concept of blockchain. And that's what we've implemented on EVs, that you can actually audit this process. Every activity, we have a log, every single thing. Over the years, we've challenged the students who feel aggrieved to ask for the database. You know, fungua server, just raise your hand, give me your email address, I'll give you a dump of that database. You know, just go and check it out. No, go count again. I don't know why they are not courageous enough to take it. Maybe they fear to be victimized, I don't know. But that is possible because we know that that system is robust. Finally, disclosability. And this was something that the providers of the election system declined to do because of intellectual property. We also can't give you access to the source code. You know, like you're going to see a little bit of interesting math we've done in there. That's proprietary. That's intellectual property. Now let me talk to you about intellectual property. And we have Kippy with us today. You need to pay them a visit. And the reason we're here is because of intellectual property. Why will we not give you our source code? Because it is our intellectual property. Why won't Coca-Cola release the formula? Because it is intellectual property, isn't it? Why won't the US, for example, give away its software for making chips to China? They recently stopped, isn't it? It is intellectual property. Intellectual property is a creation of the mind. It has value, a lot of value. The Coca-Cola formula is worth trillions of dollars over the years. It's a chemical formula. Yeah? Google, the search engine algorithm is intellectual property. Yeah? You have phones today, touch screens. There's something around those phones called the Gorilla Glass. Yeah? Somebody figured it out. Scratch-resistant plastic. That's intellectual property. You know? That logo is intellectual property. It's a brand. It's worth money. You know? So, the people who are providing the election system for Kenya, the transmission, declined to allow access to their system because it is intellectual property. But whatever needed to be done could be done without access to the heart of their system. Ladies and gentlemen, your idea is worth a lot of money. A lot of money. So you don't go throwing it around. How do you throw it around? In an exhibition like here today, you are very excited to display, isn't it? For example. But you've not protected your intellectual property. Or at least I'm informed that as long as you have the first manifestation of the IP, like our logo, we can lay claim to it, so you can't use it. You know? But there are some ideas you have that you go sharing in exhibitions, in competitions, and etc., without thinking about how to protect them first. So we have copyrighted this system. That is the intellectual property protection available for EVs or software systems. It's not an industrial design. It is not patentable. Yeah? So we went for the option available. But in other jurisdictions like the US, there are software patents for very unique algorithms and processes implemented on computers. The question of intellectual property comes in. Your idea is worth money. And that's why we're here in the Central Rift Innovation Week to sensitize you around how to make money from your idea. It begins with a viable idea, a real problem, a concept worth pursuing. The next step is a prototype and its protection. Then it's incubation, then it's full commercialization. And various speakers before Friday will be telling you many things about that, including how to raise money, to do those prototypes, to host your system on DigitalOcean, to do nice marketing material like we have here, like you have booklets there, that cost money, isn't it? But that did not come on day one. It has only come after years of investment in times of time to prove ourselves. And then we can be trusted with a little. But you don't need so much. At this point in time, the only funding we have ever received so far now in total is around 1 million shillings. 500 to take it to the next level, and another 500 to do the kind of booklets and things you're seeing here. And we hope that's going to be the end of any investment we get from the university. Because now we should be sustainable. So when you think investment, you don't think hundreds of millions of shillings. Even 50,000 shillings sometimes is enough to get you started. So I stopped at that point to talk about disclosability, and I said why it is not possible to have 100% disclosure. Because you have something valuable in your idea. You know? So sensitizing you a bit on the value of your idea. So this idea that is EVs is valuable because we hope it will go places. So let me just give you an overview of that system, just a few screenshots before we have the actual demo. You can create an account. This is self-provisioning. You don't have to call us to create an account for you. You create it yourself. Just go ahead, you create it. When you create it, you can have several organizations inside. your account. You can run several elections. The only part we've not completed automating is the payment part, because you need to pay for the voting credits. Why pay for voting credits? That automated email with the passwords and the SMSs cost, and we also need to pay for the server and other such things. And ultimately, we need to earn a living. So you can self-provision on this system. You create your own institution administrator account. You can do that. You can then create an election. You give it an instance. You upload your voters list, your candidates. You set the time the election should start, the time it should stop, and that's it. Name, voters, candidates. It starts and ends when? You're done. The next thing is that once the election is ready, the voters will now go in, get a password, and vote. You get your results. It's that simple. You can edit your candidates, put up a photo, make them look good on the ballot, the electronic ballot. You can edit your voter details. So there's a chance for voters to, verify the voters register or their details. So if something is wrong, say their phone number is wrong, their email is wrong, maybe their constituency is wrong, or their attributes are wrong. Somebody's been put as a male, they're female, they're town campers, maybe they should be main campers, they're resident, should be non-resident, maybe they belong to a certain ward, department, constituency, and that is not being captured correctly, then you can edit those details. This is an interesting part. You want to configure the voting positions eligibility. So for example, who votes for sports and recreation? Female. Only the females in main campus, whether they're resident or non-resident. So we call this is one of our innovations in this system. Oh, well, you can't see, but it's in your booklet, the ones you have there. This is one of the things we pride ourselves in. That once you upload your CSV, the mandatory fields are the name, either email or phone number, because we have to send a password. And the next thing you put there is used as a voting criteria. So you're going to put things that can give criteria or split your voters. So for example, gender. You could put age, brackets. You could put departments. You could put resident or non-resident. Something that can be used to split and say this position is for non-residents, this position is for male. So you put as many additional columns that distinguish your voting constituencies. And when you've done that, you can now come and configure each position. And this is dynamic. That's why I say this is self-provisioning. The system will detect your criteria and avail them to you on that screen. And you will now go ahead and configure that, so that everybody votes where they're supposed to vote. So that's one of the interesting things we've done on this system. There goes your ballot. The positions are listed there, so I just keep the obvious. You have to log in as a voter. So you go ahead, you view the positions. This is the actual ballot. And you noticed that there is a ballot there called abstain. So if you don't want to vote, if you don't like any of these candidates, you really don't want, you can abstain. That's an important thing we also did in this particular system, giving the voter the right not to cast the ballot. You can't force. Even in a normal election, you can't force somebody to cast the ballot, can you? They take it and put it in empty, isn't it? Or cross it out. I don't want to vote for president, I don't vote for MCA. You abstain, so that everything adds up. Once that is done, and the election is over, the results are available instantly. So if you want to see the percentages, for example, maybe a candidate must win with a certain percentage, 50 plus 1. The percentages are there. And you can decide whether you need a repeat election or not. Yeah? And then you see the actual tally of votes and how many actually abstained. You view this on the web interface. You can download the PDF and email it. The one thing we didn't quite do, but we may do on request, is to allow every voter to now come and see these on the system. So you don't even need an announcement. So this is time for the demo. Now the actual system. So Michael, you can come. And as Michael comes, maybe we have questions before we get to see the system itself as he sets up. So that's about EVs, that's about electronic voting. I don't know that we have a roving mic, but maybe you could try, I could hear you. Any question around electronic voting, around EVs so far? Maybe from the booklet, maybe from the presentation. Just raise your hand. You're wondering something. Wow, was it that clear? The guys at the front are saying yes, the guys at the back are still thinking about it. Or you want to first see it and then you can. How many of you have actually used EVs? Oh yeah. So here, a large number of us have never voted online, isn't it? Okay. During the rest of the week, after we do the demo, Michael will be out in the tent. You can go and try it out. Yeah? For now, we're just showing it to you. You have a question, sir? Yes.
My name is Kevin, and I have to acknowledge that I've been using the system for the past 2 years. And now my question was about the last year's election, Kuso election, where we were told that the elections for the first time they were nullified, and then we had to redo the election. And now my question is about, now maybe you can tell us exactly what happened, and now what does that say about the integrity of the system? And also my second question is about the suitability of. Okay, I'm sure you got the first question. My second question is about the suitability of the EVIS e-voting system. And now you have told us that it can also be used in church unions and maybe the circles and maybe the political parties. And now you can see that in these organizations, we have people that range from all age brackets, including the millennials, Generation Z, and maybe the Generation Y. Now, how is this system, considering that it's online, going to account for efficiency for these all age brackets? Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. The election last year, the first round Kuso election was nullified. Why? When we were doing the upgrade from version 1 to 2, the voting constituency function had a problem. So when we set out those who must vote in town campus, some were able to vote in Maine. Some gentlemen were able to vote for female positions. So the voting configuration, the constituency configuration had a problem the first time. Yeah? That tells you something. Systems will have bugs. We had tested the best we could, but we missed one thing. And when the real election came, it turned out to be the actual test. So we had to nullify because of that error. But therein lies a very wonderful thing about electronic voting. You should smile about this. We did the repeat election after 1 day. Can you imagine if you had to repeat a manual election? Just imagine the time it takes to print those ballots again, the time it takes to bring them and count them, the costs. You know, that is something you don't want to imagine. But in 1 day, we were able to repeat the election. What was the cost we incurred? The server time, the SMSs, and the email. Very minimal. You know? So even if you have a problem with electronic voting, and there's whatever issue, getting back on your feet is a matter of hours, not days, not weeks. And the costs are so absolutely negligible, not zero, but negligible compared to the manual. So yes, there will be bugs, and it's very easy to solve them and go back. And the voters won't get tired because, well, they didn't even walk to the polling station. They just did it in the comfort of their houses, their offices. So nobody's telling them to travel again. Just log in again. It's just another 5 minutes and you'll be done. Actually, the average time it takes to do the entire process is about 5 minutes. The voting system vis-a-vis age and technical capabilities. Absolutely, there will be a challenge there. If you have a significant voting bloc that is not tech savvy, then you have a problem, of course. We are thinking forward, but I dare say most of even our parents, the old ones, if they have a smartphone and they know how to go to WhatsApp, let me just assume, it will not be very difficult to train them how to use this system. So one critical element of any election system is voter education. But in our case, we also add training. Training is different from education. You know, education is for the mind. Training is for the hands. So in our case, we have that element of training, which we'll have to do. So should we come, say, to a church, and we realize that, okay, they are willing to use it, but here are their constituents. These are the voters. We give them training. We give them a mock election. Try it out. You know? Try it out. And hopefully, along that spectrum of activities, they'll gain confidence and skills required to do. But I don't think we get 100% tech savvy in some settings. Even in this university, we still have pockets of fear and apprehension about technology. But we keep going, we keep going. One person, one day at a time. I hope that helps, Kevin. Okay. Integrity in terms of those who can't participate. Now, the integrity of the system is not affected by our perception, but our perceptions can be influenced by the system's reliability. So we make sure that the system is as reliable, as accurate, as user-friendly as possible. Because if it is not, then it affects our perception on whether to trust it or not. Its integrity is also another issue. If we are not able to guarantee that the vote cannot be interfered with, then that will affect the perceptions of the voters. And that's why we do this. We educate, we train, we demonstrate, we give mock elections, and we discover issues and we keep refining them. At this point in time, we are very confident the system does work perfectly. But who knows? We've not done it in a church, yeah, or a circle. When we get there, we find a different world and they have different concerns. And a few tweaks here and there to address their concerns without affecting the heart of the election system. One man, one vote, and don't tamper with my vote. Count as cast. Those are the important things. The rest are interesting workflows, which we can always work around. So yes, it is an evolving thing. I hope that helps again, Kevin. Okay, any other question? Yes, that's Ian.
Hello. Hello, my name is Ian. So you mentioned about
Speak up.
Sorry. So you mentioned about the blockchain technology that you're using in the system. So my question is, how are you using the blockchain technology? Is it maybe, say, a smart contract that you get predetermined combination of conditions that are met? How are you using blockchain there?
Now, I said we are using something based on that. The concept of a blockchain. Let me explain. So think of a chain. Something, one node connected to the next node, etc. We have that concept, isn't it? So think of Excel. You have rows of items, isn't it? Now, for one row, compute a mathematical value, say by adding up all the numbers in that row. Put that number as a total, isn't it? Now, take that total and add it to the total of the next column and put that as a second total. So the second total comprises of the first total plus the current total, isn't it? So I take the third row, I compute the total of the third row plus the total of the second row and put that as a third total. Are we still following how this is going? The fourth one goes how? The fourth total plus the third total. So if I go to the first or the second row and change just one number, yeah? If I compute my fifth total, will I get the same total? It won't be, isn't it? I just change one small thing and the entire total from that point onward changes. That is a concept we've implemented. So you cast your votes. We compute a certain value from that vote. And as we compute the next value for the second row, we include that first value in the computation of the second one and put it as number 2. So we take number 2 and use it to compute number 3 and so on. It's a chain. If anything happens in between there, that chain is broken. If the chain is broken, the vote process is broken. So two things we are able to detect that something went wrong. That's of value, isn't it? And we can tell you where. Where did it change? Because we can tell. But if you don't have that chain, you can't tell who changed what and where. So that's a concept we've implemented. We've not done smart contracts, we just picked the concept of the chain. Just that part for now. Just to help us know it's intact. We could do more. Any other question? There's something around here. Yes, go ahead. Just wait for the mic. You ready? You can zoom in.
I'm Kodek.
Yes?
I was just thinking about the EVs from the national view. It can happen that we have just IBC recommend we use EVs for national elections. And it happens that for EVs to work, we need some like fingerprint encryption or that sort. And in the just ended national election, it happened I was the PDO. So in one of the problems we encountered, we were in the interior parts of Laikipia, whereby all the people are farmers. The fingerprints are affected. How can that be approved?
How was it done?
We were writing a special note on a paper and allow it by use of the PO authenticating the person to vote by taking the picture while the voter is holding his or her ID on the below here. And all this is, it is after that the voter is now allowed to vote.
Great. What I know we will do in our case, with time, is do what the online banking people have done. If you've used online banking on your phone, they give you the option of a password with a one-time PIN, or alternatively, you can use your biometrics, your fingerprint, isn't it? Now, these fingerprints are not the only biometric you can use. You can use your face, isn't it? Yeah? So with time, we are going to integrate biometric identification. And of course, people have to register those biometrics prior to the election. So if the fingerprint is not working, the face should. If the face is not working, the fingerprint is not working, then use the one-time password. So how does the one-time password concept work? It's about something you have. So you have access to your phone, you have access to your own email. We trust that nobody else is accessing that, isn't it? So we send you the one-time password to your email, where you only are supposed to access, or your phone, where only you should access. So there are multiple options on how we can identify voters. So far we have the one-time password, we've not integrated biometrics. For us, that will come. That helps?
My next view is, for example, we say, many politicians do say that the election was hacked, but the same politicians we find trusting the companies, the company systems, and they have invested a lot of money there. But when you come to the national elections, a simple thing did happen. One lawyer, a lady from the opposition side, just by seeing a name on the image, the Kamago name, the famous Kamago name, he said that this Kamago person has altered the whole election. It was just from perception. He doesn't have any knowledge about the system, how the election was done, but due to the perception that Kamago was the person who came into Kenya under normal conditions and with things that we didn't understand, he perceived that this person had altered the election. From this, you would say that perception doesn't affect the election. But that lady stood in that podium and said, this Kamago is the person we encountered just the other time. From people in the localities and all that do now suggest that this is a lawyer. She has studied a lot and she has now concluded that Kamago participated in the cheating of election. How can we counter that perception thing deeply?
Now, elections are emotive. Yeah? Very emotive. The stakes are too high. I don't understand why. Yeah, but they are too high. It's our person and, and anything. People clutch on straws, Even when they are trying to sink, they'll try hold water, That is an election. And that's why we do voter education. So that people can understand the election process, that's one. But in our case, we're trying to expound on the virtues of technology. And insofar as it's possibly possible, explain to people what technology can do and what technology cannot do, isn't it? Now, in our recently concluded election, a lot of ignorance on technology was displayed. Very great ignorance. Like you can change an image in mid-air. First of all, even changing an image, whether it's in mid-air, underwater, on the surface, changing an image is a very, very difficult process. It's not impossible. But changing an image and changing a figure with handwriting is possible, but the effort it takes is not milliseconds while it is somewhere in mid-air. So ignorance is one of the things we need to eradicate around technology on what is possible and what is not possible. So a lot of the arguments that were fronted on that floor of the Supreme Court were about technological impossibilities, founded on serious technological ignorance. We were embarrassed. Okay, there are no IT people who did that. I hope the law fraternity was embarrassed about some of them who are so seriously ignorant about technology. They should have consulted technology people to first advise them on the possibilities and impossibilities. So we are in a situation where emotions override judgment. And that's an election. It shouldn't be that way, but it is. So where people front arguments that are totally impossible because they just have to say something. We just have to appeal. Just say anything. Go there with Kamago, whatever. Even if it was a delivery note, just take it to the Supreme Court. Even if it's not a Form 34A, where Peleka? Yeah? Yata kani delivery note. Just the name, just take the name there. That's a problem we have. Now coming back to EVs. Yeah? Perceptions are important. Very important. An election is like 90% perception. Reality is imagination, or imagination in an election is the absolute reality. What the people imagine, that is their reality. They imagine it was hacked, it is their reality. How do we influence this imagination? By giving them some education so that their imaginations are within the confines of reality. That is what we are trying to do. So you don't imagine outside the confines of reality. Like we changed an image in mid-air, handwriting. It was transmitted when it was color, it arrived black. What's the place of photocopy? What's the place of image reduction? When you transmit color, it's a bigger image compared to black and white. Somebody should have told them that, isn't it? If you have low network, you don't transmit high definition images. You try and lower the, without losing the clarity of the information. After all, the hard copy is coming, isn't it? So we are trying to educate so that our imaginations, our expectations are within the confines of reality. Perceptions matter. And that's where we educate, so that those perceptions are informed. Does that help? Let's go ahead.
Hello. My name is Dedan Okware, a student at Kabarak University. So I have two questions. One, security and education. So the previous election that was done via Avis in Kabarak, I encountered security issues in terms of exploiting first-year students. You find that a candidate, a potential candidate who wants to win an election, approaches a first year who doesn't know anything about the system, gets his or her credentials to go and vote for, to use it to cast his own vote. So is there a way that the Avis technology can use that biometric or one-time password authentication system so that it can authenticate the sole user of the system? Two, my second question is, we have different frameworks. This is on the perspective of the developers, I'm one of them. In terms of frameworks, I understand that the system is built using front-end React. Is that correct? And for business logic, Laravel. So why Laravel and not other framework like Django, and why React and not other framework like Angular? Yeah, those are my two questions.
I'll start with the second one. There's no robust reason why React, why Laravel. Yeah, those are the technologies our developers are familiar with at that point. But React for a reason, because we were able to not to have to just develop a separate mobile application, something that is responsive to the device you're using. Laravel was because that was the technology we were familiar with at that point in time. Yeah, we have not excluded anything. With time, you see, we moved from the front end, which was Blade previously, to React, but we maintained the back end of Laravel. I think the database will still be MySQL, is it? Yes. We not moved even to Postgre, yeah? But with time, when we must scale, you know we must change. In fact, even the architecture of the system needs to be upgraded to use microservices at some point. Right now, it's a monolithic application. We have plans to go microservices. That means we now move from Laravel, we go probably the Java way, isn't it? So the system is evolving over time. The first question, what happened then in this setup? And this is where we know election is beyond the system. First year emails were usually printed and posted on a notice board. But the first years were not using their email. Sindo, I mean, what is email in the first place? So they're not using their email. So some interesting, very creative fellows would go and pull out that list, isn't it? And the password was just the same, Kabarak 1, 2, 3. So they go log in to the election system, and with that registration number, because there's the registration number, there's email and the default password. So you go to Avis, you log in with that registration number, you request for the password, it goes to the email, you have the email, you pick, you vote. You go to the next email, you pick, you vote. You vote 100 times the way you want. Why? The first year, problem number one, you post the details there. Sindo, you just post the details there. I hope that was stopped. Number two, the ones whose details are posted there have not taken action to go and log in into those accounts and change the passwords. And the third element is criminals are within us. So these criminals will always be thinking how to break the law. We pray that God saves them. But they're likely to be around. To minimize, but the third element is lack of integrity. We find people of all manner of persuasions in election systems. Some want to win by hook or crook, others want to win the right way. But why do we have electronic systems and robust election processes? To make sure that even the worst of evil intention cannot succeed. Yeah? So when we get to the point where we introduce biometrics, trust me, nobody's going to steal anyone's face or their fingerprints. You know, that will help. For now, I think they stopped putting those things up there. That helps, isn't it? So one day at a time. Every environment has its own unique problems. Maybe in a circle, everyone has the same member number. I mean, you can tell the member numbers. Unafuata number 1 ukiendanga. Maybe in a church, kuna another kind of number. So every place there'll be some unique challenges. We find a place for them. So allow me to just pause there. Thank you, Dedan.
Thank you.
Yeah, allow me to pause there and allow Michael to take us through the system. We'll have another round of questions when he's done, hopefully before 11 o'clock. So now let's see the system. Michael, introduce yourself.
I'm not authorized to attend it, that's why. It has informed me that it's only authorized to persons. Who is the link being sent to? Whichever email you give.
Register for the meeting. Sorry, as Michael sets up the team on Zoom, I think we must have lost them a bit. Maybe I can take another question or two as he sets up on Zoom. Or that was it. Yes, go ahead. The microphone. Sorry, as we wait for Michael to go in on Zoom. But you can go ahead. You access the funds, Innovation Fund. Yeah? You're a student at Kabarak? The next time you see a call, which is likely to be early next year, respond. It is for all students, all staff. But guess what? We get around about 10 applications. And out of the 10, not all of them are very good, so we fund, say, about 2 or 3. But before you concern yourself with the funding, I hope you've concerned yourself with the problem, isn't it? Great. Because for the Innovation Fund, one of the things we ask you, do you have a prototype? And then before we grant you the funding, we ask you, show us the prototype. We don't fund ideas. We fund ideas that have some form of manifestation. Yeah? I hope you get that point, isn't it? Why? We want to see that you have invested at least time in your own idea. That it has some manifestation. There's something we can see. You know? But if you have nothing to show, then we are at pains to also know what are we funding. You get the point? So start working on a prototype. That is very critical for the Kabarak Innovation Fund. My apologies, I'm informed we had some questions on Zoom and I forgot to check. So just allow me to attend to the Zoom chat. Okay, I can't see questions on Zoom unless somebody can let me know, or on Facebook. Just get the microphone and read out what you're finding on Facebook, if you have seen. Somebody help the Facebook. Oh yeah, sorry. Yes, somebody, Aston Muchela, my apologies. He's asking if he can be allowed to ask. So who is able to unmute Aston and put him on speaker? So Aston, proceed and speak. Let's see whether we can hear you. I hope somebody will get us the feed. So Aston, just hold on. Seems the feed is not coming through. Aston, try now. Let me see. Do we have his feed? Okay, I can see Aston is talking, but we can't hear him. Media team? Sorry? Somebody come help. The sound.
You can hear me?
Aston, come again.
You can hear me now?
Proceed. Aston, just proceed. Proceed.
Okay, you can hear me? Thank you. My question is with regards the constitutional test of these online voting systems. One of the fundamental requirements of our electoral systems, and I'm looking at it in the perspective of the wider scale of our national elections, assuming this is the way we want to go. One of the fundamental requirements, or some of the fundamental requirements, are that the systems are supposed to be transparent, accurate, and simple. And I'm imagining an online system will definitely meet the test of simplicity and the test of accuracy. But I'm wondering how it will meet the test of transparency. Having sat and listened to your explanations on this system, I realized that it will require more than just voter training for these systems to be transparent. The arguments that were being made during the constitutional cases, during the Supreme Court cases, as you have said, were arguments that were heavily lined by lack of knowledge. The lawyers did not understand what they were arguing. And you can imagine if the lawyers cannot understand, how much more will the normal Kenyan not even understand what is happening? I'm thinking that transparency will be a big challenge, and it will be very easy to challenge an electoral system that is purely based on the online or the virtual or the digital platform, because they will lack transparency. The things you have explained will not be understood by by that Kenyan who has never seen a computer. The only digital device he or she has seen is the smartphone. Such that if I'm having challenges in doing a voting and I'm directly at the village, it's very hard for me to be assisted as a voter. A very good example is right now, even for me to able to ask this question, it was a big challenge for me to get assistance. So I'm imagining, what if it's the situation of an election? I need to vote, time is not on my side, and the systems are failing. There's no one who is at hand to assist. Will this system fit or pass the test of transparency? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Aston forgot to introduce himself. He is the president of the Law Society of Kenya Rift Valley. Is it a branch? Yes. So that is Aston Muchela. I know him. So the question of transparency and voter education and even just how to get assistance, that cannot be gainsaid. It is obvious that we are going to have significant challenges when we use an electronic voting system to be able to provide assurances of transparency and to be able to bring everybody to the level they can actually understand what is going on. Probably that will require a lot of education, yeah, and a lot of training and a lot of iterations for people to understand exactly how this works, for them to test it, for them to just get a feel of what it can do, what it cannot do. It's not a walk in the park. And showing them the code won't help. That will even be worse. But if we were to have, for example, political parties with experts, people who can actually inspect a workflow and look at a database and understand from a very technical perspective what the system is doing, and to be able to advise their clients that this system is either good or bad, this system is practical or not, that would help. But the problem we have is when those who don't understand technology engage in that discussion, they introduce a lot of inaccuracies and a lot of confusion. So maybe it's a call for those of us who understand technology to understand EVs enough to be able to assure those who trust them that it works. There's probably no other way, because we can't expect a common person who is not well learned in technology to actually explain what is happening behind the scenes. I can explain to another techie what's happening, but I can't possibly go that deep. You understood now the conversation. When I started explaining about blockchain, I'm not sure how many quite followed. I tried to make it so simple, but it's not that simple, you know? But techie to techie, we can do this. Then the techie goes to the people who trust him and relay the same. So sometimes we don't trust things because we understand absolutely how they work. Take the case of motor vehicles. We don't know how the engines work, the braking systems. We don't actually know, but we know they work. Why? They've been tested and tried, and we know they work. But how they work, we don't quite know. But the challenge, and challenge accepted, Aston, is we still have to think of a way to explain this in as simple a way as possible that the very quote-unquote common mwananchi will understand and trust. That we cannot escape. So that we shall try our utmost to do. So, Aston, I hope that helped a bit. All right. I have a question from Geoffrey Magani. Does EVIS allow all students in session or otherwise to vote? Is it possible to vote remotely and maintain integrity? So, EVIS will allow all students who are eligible to vote. So if those who are in session are eligible, they will. If those who are out of session should not vote, they will not vote. It's up to the election manager to choose who votes and the Electoral Commission based on the constitution that is applicable. Then once you load the voters, then you configure what they can vote for, fine. So that depends on the situation in the different institutions. Is it possible to vote remotely and maintain integrity? We can maintain integrity in as far as the system is concerned. One man, one vote. No interference in the vote. But as to whether the voter will share their phone with somebody when they're voting, when they're away from us, we have no control of some things. What the voter chooses to do, we have no control. But as to whether they vote once, we have control. Absolutely. You can't vote twice. That one, we absolutely guarantee. So I don't know if there's another final question. I think you are ready. Great, welcome. So Aston and Geoffrey, thank you for the questions. This is an ongoing conversation. We've got to try this thing. We've got to use it. You know, we've got to stretch it left, right, and center until ultimately it will serve its purpose. I hope we get that point, isn't it? Yes. So welcome.
Good morning. I'm Michael Lekesa, a third-year student at Kabarak University, and I'm going to take you through the demo, that is the EVIS demo. And I think all of us have been here since Dr. Thig actually started the session, and I believe we have had some informative ideas that he has actually gotten to share with us. So I'll be taking you through the demo, and where I'll start with is actually the system, not the entire systems admin, but I'll just try and explain a little bit of it because it's a bit beyond the scope of this demo. But yeah, there is a system administrator who actually oversees everything that he actually gets to ensure when it comes to like a credit rating for a given institution, at the same time also payment deposit confirmation. And also he has control over the chairpersons of the specific institutions. And at the same time also he has the capability of adding and deleting specific institutions and specific chairpersons. So meaning that his scope is more on the system than any other individual that can actually register in this system. So I won't share that for integrity purposes. But yeah, there is that. But I'll start from the system administrator, that is the chairman, who is capable of actually overseeing an institution's election. That is, they can create an election, they can delete, not delete, but they can actually manage election and everything that goes through for a specific institution. So this is actually the interface for an institution chairman to actually log in, and also they can create an account at the same time. So as you can see, that's the place where they can actually create an account for the very same login procedure. Then there is as you can see, there is full name, phone number, and everything, or the specific credentials that they actually get to sign up. So for signing in, there is the email and the password. So I already have my password saved here. I'm a chairman of a specific institution. So let me just log in into the dashboard. So I've actually zoomed in. So let me just zoom out so that you can have you can get actually to see the entire dashboard. Oh, you can actually see it. As you can see, I've logged in as a chairman for a specific institution. At the top there, you can see that there is a Hakiki University. Hakiki University does not actually exist, so this is just, let's say, a dummy university that I tried to set up so that we can actually get to see this. So when I get to click here, a chairman can actually have multiple institutions that he actually gets to manage. So let me just shift to a different institution, that is the Kabarak University institution. So I can actually shift that. So I can select that institution. So as you can see, it's not only that a single chairman only gets to handle a specific institution, but they can have multiple. As you can see, the interface, there is already an existing, this is under active tab. There's already an existing demo election. So I created this demo election specifically for this session. But still, I'll take you through, I'll just demonstrate a demo on how you actually get to create an election. I did this prior because of the data set that I actually have for the CSV file and candidates, because we are going to take this all through. It's quite massive, around 8,000 rows, so it could have taken a huge time to actually, some extra time to actually complete setting up the election, but I'll just show you the process of how you get to create. So as you can see, I, as Michael Lekesa, as the chairman of Kabarak University, I have access, can actually get to edit this institution. As you can see, I can edit institution, that is, I can change the logo or the image that you put there. And at the same time, I can also change the institution's name. So yeah, but I won't do that at the moment. So yeah, so let me demonstrate how you can actually create an election. Then I'll get to explain about the dashboard that you see beside you. Beside the, that you can see on your left, that is. So about creating an election, as you can see, you set up the election name. As you can see, let me say KUSA 2022, but it's a test election. Let's put it as a demo election. Then you get to select the CSV. So CSV is actually a specific format that you'll be uploading the voters. So meaning that all voters that are going to participate in this very same election are going to be all their parameters, that is their names, all the specificities that come in to actually categorize this as a valid voter. It is through the CSV, similar to the candidate. So I can actually, okay, at the moment, I've already set up a demo election, and as I've said, the data set that I have for the CSV is quite massive and it might take some time. So let me just explain this, then we'll continue all through. So as you can see, just to pass this part, let me just get to actually put in so I actually have a sample CSV. And at the same time, for the candidate, I also have a sample CSV. Yeah. So I've selected that, then I get to accept. Then there is the opening date and the closing date. You can select the specific dates that you want this election to be conducted. You can actually schedule this. Then at the same time, you can also do the opening date. So I'll just put it at current date and current time. Then the next part is actually the closing date and the closing time. So we have the closing, so you can actually have a 3-day election, a 2-day election, or 1-day election, but you'll have it, let's say a 3-hour election. So I can just put it after 3 hours, that will be around 1. And I set it okay. Then after that, I get to agree, and it will actually start the uploading process. I won't do that at the moment because it might take some time. But yeah, as long as the CSV is valid based on how it's, because it's usually in a specific format. So as long as the CSV is in the expected format, then the upload will be a successful one. So after actually doing the upload and creating the election, this is what you get to see. So you get to see a demo. At the moment, I named this as demo election, but this is what you'll get. Then from here, you can actually get to manage the election. But let me just briefly explain what you get to see here. So as you can see, there is deposit. There is part 4. So there are elections, then there is deposit for this specific institution, that is. And as you can see, all the information concerning the payment that is actually done that is facilitated for those elections reflects here based on a specific institution. And as you can see, for a good example here, there is some credit information about Kabarak University. Then there is the expenditure. At the same time, so the expenditure also is calculated, and a chairman can also get information about how they get to spend their funds while conducting a specific election. Then there is history, so a chairman can actually see their history, and also there is notifications in case there are specific notifications that are supposed to be passed through. So yeah, so let me get back to the election. So I'm going to actually demonstrate an election, and you'll have an opportunity for the continuing students, that is. The continuing students will have an opportunity to actually take part in this. For the first years, I do not have, the data set that I have at the moment does not have your information. So yeah, let me just activate the election. So what usually happens is that you get to the manage election. As you've seen, I've just clicked the manage election. Then you get to see the candidates. So you have a dashboard. The dashboard has candidates information. It has voter information. It has manage clerks. It has filter voting position. So I'll take you step by step. And starting with candidates information, this is all the information that is pertaining a specific candidate. And if there is any other candidates that is to be added into the system, they can actually be added through the edit candidate. So as you can see, you put in the candidate's name and then the position that they're actually vying for. As you can see, there are several positions. And also their image, that is the image that is going to reflect on the ballot side, the ballot interface, when voters will be making the voting processes. So yeah, and at the same time, all the candidates that are there can actually be edited. As you can see, you can change the image, you can change the name in case the name has an issue. You can also change the position in case maybe there was a miss on that. At the same time, also within that specific election, you can actually see the voters' information. Yeah, you can see the voters' information, and at the same time, you can also register a new voter in case the voter is left out. So also we have a search. You can search in case you have a massive database of voters. You can also search for a specific voter. So let me just search myself by name. So I'm Michael Abraham Wekesa, but let me just do Michael Wekesa. Ndio msiseme this guy just said, but maybe it doesn't work. It actually works. So it was a search by name, and it seems like, so let me just do that again, search by name. Let me just do my first name. Yeah, there's several Michaels, and here is my name. Here is my information right there. Let me just press edit so you can see, yeah, that's my information, and as you can see, that's me. I know myself, that's me, so that's why that's me. So anyway, yeah. So as you can see that it actually works, and you can search by voter email, you can search by phone number, so you just have to toggle through. I've already explained. So these pages, yeah, these pages. You might think that it's what you see on the interface is the only thing, but when you open the pages, it's a massive. As you can see, it's up to 586 pages. Then there is manage clerks. So during when an election instance is actually running, that's meaning that we have an election live. There are usually clerks that help in managing the election processes. So this is actually where we actually get to register. We actually get to register a clerk. So let me just register myself as a clerk, because this is a demo that I'm going to run live for around 10 minutes. If you have an opportunity, you can actually vote. That is for the continuing students. So let me just register myself, and maybe if anyone will wish to be a clerk, they can also. But yeah, let me just do that. I've added myself as a clerk. So once you get to add yourself as once you get to add a clerk, they usually receive an email where they have the URL. That is the unique resource locator for them to actually get to have access the interface for the clerks. Then they also given an access token. That is a very unique string. A word, a very unique word that they actually get to use to log into the clerks portal with. So I've registered myself as a clerk. Then there is now eligibility parameters that we get to set, as Dr. had said earlier. So here, filter voting positions is where now we get to put to set the eligibility parameters. So for example, I think you can see very clearly. Yeah, I hope you can see that. So there is sports and recreation female. Definitely by default, male, you have no right to actually participate in that. So we set that to female. Then there is a sports and recreation male, we set to male. Library can be both genders. For director, ladies, so it has to be director of hostels, lady, it has to be a female. Then for the non-resident, definitely they can be both, yeah, right? Then we'll filter that based on residency. Then there is director clubs, can be both genders. There is catering, can be both genders. Then there is social affairs female, that has to be a specific gender. The same to male, that has to be a specific gender. Then there is director academic town campus. There is director sports social, that is female, only female. Then the same with only male. And then there is now residency. So residency, there is I think this comes to such posts like director of non-resident. So he has, whoever will be voting, they have to be non-residents. Then there is there any other that considers residency? I think that for now that's a perfect fit. Then there is a campus. So campus, as you can see here, there are around 3 posts that are for Nakuru Town campus based on this data sample. So we'll use, so I'll change that to town campus. As you can see, director sports and social, female and male, both town campus. Then there is academic, also town campus. Then the rest is actually the main campus. So let me just set that the main campus, and main campus. Yeah, let me just do that. Yeah, I already have set the eligibility parameters. Then I get to actually sync it with the entire election data set. And when the voters get to actually log in into the voter portal, they get to actually see what is only tailored to them. So I'll sync it. So I've actually synced it successfully. Then now get to start election instance. So with start election instance, I hope you can see it clearly. As you can see, with start election instance, you can already see the stats there, the statistics. There is positions available, candidates enlisted, there is a voter, there is a total voters, and there is a credit balance at the same time. And also you can see that send out voter passwords for this election instance. So what I'll do is I'll share the voter portal, but I won't send email credentials because it will send emails to the 8,000 people, because actually those emails are not just dummy emails, but they're actual emails. And the same with every information that we've actually seen here. So it will send to the 8,000, and we're just doing a small demo, so I won't do that. But I'll share with you a link that you can actually access the voter portal, yeah. And at the same time, you can see here there is closing the instance marks, the election completed. So meaning that there is extend hours down here. I can actually extend hours in case this election maybe turnout was low or something, depending on whatever reasons there is, you can actually extend the hours. So as you can see, we are set to close at 10:55 a.m. It's already past that, so let me just change that to around, let's say 11. Yeah, so as you can see, extend election time, and it will have changed to 11:55 a.m. So yeah, let me run the instance, then you actually get the opportunity. And at the same time, I'll also access the voter portal, so you'll see what's happening. Let me start the instance. So I'll start the instance here. So instance is now ongoing. So ongoing, I mean. It was an active instance, and it's now ongoing. So as you can see, it's shifted to a different tab. That is an ongoing tab. And at the moment, just access that link. So just type bit.ly/evis-demo. If you believe you're in the voters, if you're a valid registered voter, kindly do so. You'll just know when you get to the portal. So at the same time, let me access the portal on my side. In case you don't get to access it, kindly. So that's the voter portal. So there is usually a unique URL that is generated with every election instance that gets to run. So it's not like at any given time when you get to access this, you'll always see this. No, there must be an election that is actually running for you to have the authentication. The authentication interface, as you see. So if a specific election does not exist, you don't get to this. You don't get to see this. You only see that an election will start soon. The same with the Android application. There is actually an Android application. The Android application usually runs, or it becomes, yes, it's active, but it will also give you a similar interface that an election will start very soon. And when the election instance is actually live, that's when you actually have access to authenticate yourself and actually log into the ballot where you'll have to cast your votes. So I'll actually do the procedure. So you don't have to know the specific password here. All you have to do is actually put your registration name. So I'll just do my same with mine. The reason is because the access token is generated with every specific login. So there is no like a default login credentials for the voter portal. No, it's for every election, and there is usually a unique access token that you're given through email. So I'll press send email. It will send to my email. Do the same with yours. It will send an access token to your email. Then you'll have the access token that you'll use to log into the system. So I think, yeah, I think you guys I'll just log in my email with my phone for, let me say, I don't want to show my emails here, so.
Michael,
Yeah?
reshare the link.
The link. Oh, okay. So the link to the voter portal is bit.ly, as you can see, /Evis demo. In case there's any issue or the link is broken, kindly. It's loading. Okay, let me just look into that. A minute. Let me just confirm that link. So I think the link that I registered there is okay. Let me just see if the bit.ly actually works. /Evis. It's working, so yeah, it's actually working, so I don't know. Anyone's experiencing issues? It's working? Okay, thank you. So yeah, I've already sent an email. Okay, let me just show you the email. Okay, yeah, let me just show you the email that comes in. So when you get registered as a clerk, and at the same time also when you get registered as a voter, when you're an officially registered voter, you also get the email. So as you can see there is the email. It comes in with the name of the election, the URL to the election, to the voter portal, and also the access token. That's the access token down there. The same with for the clerk. Also, if you get to be registered as a clerk, you also get the same. So let me get back to where we were. Yeah, so let me just log in. I hope you guys are logging in and you can actually get to see the ballot. For those who are not in a position to, I'll show you the ballot interface here. So let me just get the password here. So you can actually validate info as you had seen, and maybe also I can't remember that, but when we'll get back to that interface, I'll explain a little bit. But yeah, as you can see, we have the interface there. There's some the wording is not quite visible from the top sides, but there is sports recreation from the first view candidates, the one that you see with the question mark, and the last one is Director of Social Affairs male. So as you can see, there is a Director of Social Affairs male and female. But as you can see, mine is tailored to male because I'm, yeah. So the same with the Director of Non-Residents. I'm a non-resident, so as you can see, it's tailored to me. But if you are a resident, you won't see that. So let's go to view candidates. View candidates, as you can see, in case we had uploaded images where there is the avatar, the circles, the many circles that you see, that almost look similar to a person. Those are avatars. So you see the avatars could have been the images, and you can actually decide to vote, and at the same time you can decide to abstain. As you can see where there is the shield with an X in red, that's abstaining, meaning that you do not wish to cast a vote on that specific position. So I've abstained on that. For the view candidates, I decide to actually, you can also vote if you're in a position to vote. I've picked that candidate. For that, I've picked that candidate. For that, I've decided to abstain that too. For that, I've picked, I've abstained 2 positions, that is sports, recreation, and clubs. I'll only abstain those two. Then when we'll get to the results, you'll see what will have happened. So Director of Social Affairs, I'll pick one person. I've picked my candidate as that. Then after doing that, you actually get to cast. And once you cast, this is a point of no return. You cannot go back and try and maybe edit your ballot or anything. That's done, and you've successfully casted. And even if I try and log in again, I will not be in a position to actually log in. Even if I get a request for a new access token, that is the password, I'm in no position to actually access that because I've already casted my votes. So as you can see, not received and validate info, you can actually do that in case you're not sure if you're part of the voting system. And there it is, the interface of validating that. So let me just quickly go back. So I hope you guys are voting. Yeah, you're voting actually. Okay, let me believe so, because I'll wish us to see the results. And as you can see, it's an ongoing election, and it will continue all the way till the end of the specified time of the elections to be closed. So I'll manage the election. Concerning the clerk, I think, the clerks have, I won't go into that much, but I'll explain it. So the clerks, let me just show you a demo on that. So let me log in into the clerks portal, because so you usually get you get a URL, and that's the URL that you're going to use for that specific election instance. So let me just log in into that. So the clerks are a few few selected people that will be overseeing the election. So as it gets to load, a minute I seem to have, let me just, yeah, so the election instance, for a specific election instance, if you're a clerk, you'll have a portal where you can actually log in as a clerk. So I'll demonstrate the clerk's interface. So let's go back to managing the election. So as you can see, okay, so currently one voted. This is quite heartbreaking, despite yes.
Currently, in this room, it's first years mostly.
Okay. So yeah, but you can see the results there. I'm seeing familiar faces. Okay, anyway, so as you can see, currently voted is only one. So I've successfully taken part in the voting process, and the candidates enlisted were 64, and positions available were 12. So let's look at so I'll close the instance because due to time, I'll close the instance, but however, it would have run all the way up to 11:55 a.m. That is almost 40 to 50 minutes away. So let me just close this instance so that you can get to the results part. And when I close this instance, yeah. So once I get to close this instance, the election gets to shift its tab to completed. So as you can see here, we have several elections that have been conducted with this at Kabarak, for at the moment, this instance of Kabarak University, several elections, and ours was a demo. So that's the most recent. It's the last in the listing. So you'll see that this is the results interface, as Dr. Thiga had actually shared with us. And as you can see that we have sports and recreation female. I didn't take part in that because of the eligibility criteria. Then there is sports and recreation male. You remember I abstained under that. So as you can see, abstained 1. And the rest of the voters have 0 votes. Then library academics, there is that Dominic Kiplangat, and he has 1 vote. So as you can see, the percentage representation, it's only